Thank you very much, Sita. Thank you very much, dear friends, dear comrades. Sita, I'm not the beloved president. This is, I don't know. Okay. I want to start by telling you a personal story. I became mayor in my home city, the city around 40,000 inhabitants at the border between Germany, the Netherlands and Belgium. At the age of 30 years. My wife was just pregnant with our first son. We were a very young couple. And my wife, she is a landscape architect. It's a profession with a known studio. And it was a surprise for me when my predecessor as mayor told me I have to retire. He left from the city hall, from his post as mayor, by personal reasons. And I was the leader of the Young Socialists in the city. And that the leader of the Young Socialists, a wild, outraged, uncontrolled man, should become the mayor of this city, which is 1,200 years old. It's one of the oldest cities in Western Germany. It was unforeseen and unimaginable. Okay, he asked me, would you become my successor? I suggest you to the city council. So I was very proud, surprised and proud, but I said to him, listen, this is a surprise for me, but I have to ask my wife. Don't applaud too early. And I went home and my wife, with our son, and I said to my wife, listen, darling, Liebling in Germany, if I start to say Liebling to my wife, this is already, I said, look, I could have the chance to become mayor, but I said to my predecessor, I said to the mayor in office, only if my wife agrees. And the answer of my wife was the following one: don't tell me such a nonsense. Why? What would you do if I say no? That is a difficult question. No, my wife said to me, listen, become mayor, but you should know this has not a single influence on my life. I will not become the mayor. I am a sovereign, autonomous partner following my life. I'm not the first lady at the side of the mayor. I do my own life. And that was the reason. Yeah. That was the reason why I think made a successful political career. Because my wife said to me, do you want to go ahead? Go ahead. But I expect from you that I go ahead as well. And we shared it. And my wife was more successful than me as bookseller, I must admit. She earned more money than I earned with my books because I most of the time read the books instead to sell them. And our marriage, in 28 years, 29 years I'm now married with my wife. In this early beginning, I learned that men and women are equal. There is no difference between men and women. And therefore I tell you, the biggest shame in Europe for the time being is that men and women get for the same work different salaries. And therefore you campaign, come to an end with the gender pay gap in Europe. This is not your campaign, this is our campaign, this is my campaign. The equal pay campaign is one of the most important, this is a cornerstone of my campaign. And I tell you, should I become the President of the European Commission, we will start to come to an end with this shameful situation. And therefore I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful because it is one element, the equal pay campaign is one element of a strategy we have to develop. Because in the crisis in which we are, women are the first victims of the crisis. Women suffer in a way we could never imagine 10, 15 years ago. And they are paying the cost for this social crisis, women and the young generation, that in some parts of our continent, comrades and friends, 50%, in some regions more, of our young generation, of young men and women are unemployed. This is a disaster. We are the richest part of the world. We have 700 billion euros to mobilize for saving banks, stabilize our currency system, which is for sure necessary. And what are we doing for the next generation? If you allow, I tell you another story, a personal one. My parents, they were asked to do sacrifices we could not imagine. They worked longer. They got less salaries. My father had 60 years when he went for the first time to a holiday. 5 children. They sent us all to a school, but they paid for the school, they paid for the school books, they paid for the transport. And the governments in France, in Italy, in all the member states of the European Union, they asked to the generation, this post-war generation, which was the parent generation of my acting generation, they asked them sacrifices we cannot imagine today. And they did it without any comment. Why? Because the government told them this for the better of your children, it's for the future of your children. And look to my life, or the generation, look to our life. If we compare our life with the life of our parents. And what are we doing now, my generation in office? We are asking sacrifices from other people. For what? Lower salaries, higher taxes, less services. For what? To save banks. And their children are unemployed. And therefore I understand people who are fed up with such a system, who say we are disappointed, we are hopeless. And therefore our fight, our common fight, is also the fight against those who want to have a profit from this disappointment by telling to people to mobilize against this idea of Europe because they say this is Europe. No, this is not Europe. This is a kind of policy made by people in Europe. There is also another Europe, possibly Europe, which is caring about the chances of the next generation, who is putting the individual interest of citizens and their children at the first place of the political agenda. I want not to live in a Europe where speculators make profits and don't pay taxes. But when speculators make losses, the taxpayers have to pay for them. I want to get a Europe where banks save banks and taxpayers' money is invested in the future of young women, in the future of managing the social crisis.